I'm just making sure I'm all set. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. I'm with Literary Arts. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We're so excited to be here with Incite. Thank you for joining. I know we have folks joining us from all over Oregon and beyond. But before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that Literary Arts is based in Portland, Oregon, and that we are currently on unceded land. The Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala bands, the Tualatin Kalapuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River occupied and operated on this land long before Western colonizers arrived, and many continue to do so today. Despite attempts of removal and erasure, these communities remain a strong and vital part of our future. Literary Arts recognizes that this acknowledgement is only a small step in affirming the ongoing presence and contributions of our Native communities, and we commit to engaging these communities more fully as we fulfill our mission. For those of you who are not familiar with Literary Arts, we are a nonprofit, community based arts organization with a 35-year history of serving readers and writers. Our mission is to engage readers, support writers, and to inspire the next generation with great literature. Our programs include the Portland Arts and Lectures, programs for youth, the Oregon Book Awards and Fellowship Program, and the Portland Book Festival. We also offer reader seminars, writing classes, and free literary events like this one year round. And although we can't physically meet, you can still find many ways to stay involved over at literary-arts.org. I'll also link our website and our Instagram and Twitter. Great. Well, thank you all. I'm going to hand it over to your host.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Incite. I'm seeing several faces I don't know and names I don't know. So just as introduction, my name is Vinnie Kinsella. I'm one of your co-hosts. Jennifer Perrine JP is my co-host over there. Wave at everyone, JP, so they know who you are. Incite is exactly what it is, queer writers reading. This is a wonderful space where we invite queer authors to come and share their work in a very open and affirming space for primarily queer listeners to hear, but also just to create that sense of community. And even though we live in, for those of us in Portland, in a very open and affirming city, we still need our own spaces. We still need places where we can gather amongst ourselves and talk openly and talk freely. And that's the heart, the big heart behind Incite. So I did want to acknowledge as we start that this is the last March Incite was canceled because of COVID restrictions, and had no idea going into it that a year later we would still be there. But I want to applaud you all. You're here, you're surviving, you're making it. So I am hoping that Incite is one of those places where it's an oasis for everyone who comes. It's a place to be refreshed and to just have your heart lightened as we have been dealing with some rather disheartening past months. But that's my hope for tonight. That's my hope in general. I don't have any specific announcements for everyone, but I did want to kind of go over Zoom etiquette. This is a unique experience as we're all learning more and more daily how to use Zoom, but just a few things to keep in mind. First off, this event is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube so that people who couldn't attend tonight can watch it later. So if you don't want your face on the screen, now would be a good time to go down to that stop video button and click it so that your face isn't there. But of course, the YouTube video will primarily be focused on the readers, but just giving everybody that fair warning if you want to get out of the screen, this is your chance to do that. Also, if you're engaged in any activity that you think might be distracting, just go ahead and stop the video. I'll let you decide what that means. Obviously, if you're getting up and dancing around, unless that's part of the reading, probably a good idea not to have the video on. But we do encourage people to share their videos and see each other, especially when we go into our breakout rooms at the end so that everybody can see everyone's faces as we converse with each other. And obviously when people are reading, go ahead and stay muted. And lastly, do share your excitement. That's what the chat is for. Go ahead and send your applause and your loves and your yips and your and your hoots and your hollers as the readers go. Just know that the readers will probably not be reading the chat as they're reading, so don't expect a quick response on that. But yeah, let everybody know what you're enjoying and your excitement. That's that's the digital version of us nudging and clapping and hooting and snapping. So go for it. So with sort of that business out of the way, I want to pass things along to my co-host JP, who's going to carry us forward with the next part of the evening. So take it away, JP.
Thanks, Vinnie. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Perrine, or JP. I just wanted to thank Jessica again and Literary Arts for hosting us tonight. And also I saw in here somewhere Elisa from Another Read Through, who is selling books by tonight's featured readers. And so just wanted to welcome Elisa as well and thank her for being here and being our bookseller and supporting independent bookstores. I also just wanted to thank everybody who's joining us both from the Portland area and from beyond. It was great to see people from lots of different spaces showing up in the chat, and I'm so glad that you can be here with us tonight. For those of you who haven't attended Incite before, as Vinnie mentioned, each event starts with readings and they're on a theme. They're by our featured authors. And that's also followed by a community discussion that's around some questions that are tied to that theme. So the theme for tonight is repair/rebuild. And after the reading, we'll move into some small groups to talk about what repairing and rebuilding means to each of us. And then we'll come back together as a whole community before we close out the night. So I'm going to pop the conversation questions in the chat in case you're the kind of person who likes to mull things over, because I definitely am. And with that, I'm going to start the evening. So our first reader tonight is Ajay Tripathi. Ajay is an immense talent. He's an actor, director, producer, playwright. He's worked as an education director. He's written 3 bilingual shows for young audiences, Corre Corre, Sueños de Fútbol, and Mijita Ferdita. He's also on the administrative team for PDX Playwrights, where he produced his one-person show, Osho Returns, and a short play, The Madness of Dionysus. His work is guided by the mission of centering marginalized communities, decolonizing theater and academia, and advocating for inclusive practices in the arts. And I'm so excited that he's here with us tonight.
Thank you, JP. The rehabilitation. While getting dark out, Kwame walked to work, his steady gig at the rehab center. Between streetlights, he pulled up his mask. He glanced at the porchways of houses and apartment complexes he strolled by. How disparate the world seemed. Finding togetherness and staying apart. The ground continuously shifting, never letting any sort of routine take hold. What routine would suffice? The institution extended the whole block. Once an old age home, now consolidated state living arrangements for all of the broken people seeking repairs. The suicide attempts, the mental disorders, those afflicted with addiction, just down the hall from the disabled and dying. Previously, it seemed a menacing building, but today it looked no different than the houses and apartments he walked by. Nothing like a communicable disease to remind us how connected we are. Severing the little connections proved less difficult than one would expect. And underground, inside each of those porch lights, each of those windows housed personalized institutions in and of themselves. Inside one laid Arturo. Trying today to stay resolute, all his interfacing occupied him. Health check-it, appointment reminder, vocational training, capitalist drugs, sex on demand. Screens were nerve-wracking, but less so than faces. So many addictions to feed. Though the underground was all pushed into the virtual realm, he longed for and lived in that analog underbelly that still prospered. His days of cruising were over. Once his main concern were viral loads and bodily fluids. Will I've been vaccinated be the new I'm on PrEP? There didn't seem to be a point in in-person dating. Now one can have a mute cute, quiet flirtation, rushed courtship, torrid romance, cohabitation, building resentment, cold indifference, mutual destruction, and disastrous breakup all in one social app. No need to waste time on commutes. The physical world is not enough anymore. It was past time to move boundaries. In this universe, he didn't even need to be himself anymore. The self is a thing of the past. That's life in the post-self society, post-self and post-person. All the things we used to get hung up on are obsolete. We now live in transmissions, not cells. He Googled, what do you do when you ejaculate blood? In Duke's room, Kwame turned off the TV and pulled up the blanket. Lamp lit with a warm glow, the room contrasted with the violet twilight out the window. The way the day was unfolding, it seemed clear. Duke would soon die. Sensing discomfort, Kwame slid down his blanket to his ankles and pulled up his sheet. He briefly shuddered at the realization that this time tomorrow, this would be an empty bed. He looked Duke in the eyes, projecting comfort despite the premonition. For the months in his care, he had grown attached, even as all communication was through eye gestures. No longer able to form words, Duke's language amounted to a composition of sputters and gurgles, which was actually pretty expressive in determining whether he had need, and the eyes would finish the cue, pointing at the direction of the need. This time the eyes had need, but no direction to go, just reflections. I should say something, thought Kwame, but what? All his gifts for conversation seemed inadequate at this juncture. If only he were untethered like Opal. She died screaming at nightmares and fending off demons. If Duke were like that, he could say something of comfort, something grounding, reassuring to soothe the delirium. But Duke wasn't in agony. For him, death wasn't trekking into an undiscovered country. It was a layover, tedious. His last evening filled with the usual routine, just with an additional anticipation and waiting. Kwame looked at his eyes one last time and with them said, I love you. He moved to the door and hit the lights, the purple twilight filling the room. The hue reminded him of a song his mom would sing to him, and it brought a smile to his face. He didn't know if it would suffice as the last thing a person should hear, but it was all he had. So he closed his eyes and sang, remembering the words as he went along. You can dance with every guy who gives you the eye, let him hold you tight. You can smile, every smile for every man who would hold your hand underneath the pale moonlight. But don't forget who's taking you home and in whose arms you're going to be. So darling, save the last dance for me. Arturo dreamed in a memory when he was 19. Gay dating wasn't an option and his social scene consisted of glory holes. Somehow he acquired a boyfriend, though he didn't like to call him a boyfriend because he was in his 30s. Still, he was useful in that he did live upstairs from his mom on the side of a road by an old high school. The walls of his loft were covered by artsy black and white magazine cutouts of angular 90s era Caucasoid models of both genders and various stages of undress. He hung out at his house at night. This time was special. The room was crisp from the rank smoke of cigarettes and sweaty metallic dope. The last words from the phone conversation, come out, get high, get spung, have good time. This is different, intravenous. Better, the real thing. Time to wake up. Have you ever heard Concrete Blonde? He grabbed a CD in a little treasure box, a baggie, lighter and spoon, like he was a host on a cooking show segment in an after-school special. The needle sucks up the plastic glue like a hummingbird at a feeder. Concrete Blonde playing, flicks a syringe. Despite my arcade booth habit, it was still a new experience to let a man touch me, and soon the entirety of my naked arm would be outstretched above his open palms. Rubber hose on bicep, puckering out that confluence of veins, the meeting of the Ganga and the Saraswati, the Tigris and Euphrates. The sword now poised right above hovering Damocles' head. Now I need you to relax, he said. This makes my blood rise. The song reached its melancholy chorus. We can make believe that Kennedy is still alive. Relax and open, he presses a needle. I listen. We're shooting for the moon and Smiley Jacking is driving by. Good. He presses a syringe, filling me up. They say, good try. Tomorrow, Wendy's going to die. Arturo then becomes conscious of himself viewing his memories, so he tells himself in the dream, you know you will never be so awake again. Fall in. The ceiling tunnels out, the fish-eyed screen retreats back into the space and the sound melds with the whirling wind. Hot pulse, rocking, back and forth. This is how you grew up. This is where you learned to be a whore. This is when you wake up. You got home that next morning in defilement. You knew you were gay, but it was always that one thing to avoid saying out loud. It was enough to know. You knew it mentally, but now your body knew. It can never be denied again. Through what would eventually become an absolutely terrible relationship, you met a nature in yourself that was unretractable. You can no longer deny it. It would be easier to deny volcanoes. Kwame walked home at dawn, mask up. He used to enjoy the smell of different things, the greasy steam of food carts, rain on grass, spring blossoms, but this time he smelled his mask. He thought about the nature of disease and what if a sickness was really just a manifestation of people's prejudice, hate, and fear. No, he decided, it's just a virus and isn't different. While thinking this, he didn't notice the maskless man approaching until he was close. The stranger lurched at his face and tried to rip off his mask. Kwame latched onto his face with a survival instinct, initially secure, but soon he was overpowered by force. He gave in to the power of his opponent. He screamed and looked up to the sky. Somewhere spinning above all the houses and apartments, a piece of everyone's essence rose like spirits from a tomb. The separate human energies corkscrewed together, unretractable from the melee. Upward and upward. His mask slowly pulled down. His scream made it up there with the rest of the noise, and all of the screams shot up from the town like a school of fish swimming up and in circles until they all joined together into one big fish. The rehabilitation was underway. When bodies are left to their own devices, they start to heal on their own. Falling asleep, he saw all the walls disappear. Everyone was naked and exposed, all swimming upward. People were overjoyed as they embraced, kissing, commingling in crowds, dancing in the forgotten warmth of physical company. How can we do this? How can we begin to repair what seems so irreversibly broken? Yet it occurred to him that's what we do. We are weavers inside a scar, making sutures of our will. We are a protective scab that covers a parting wound. We lie above a wound as a lover makes a shield of their back, our human shelter naturally nurturing. For a heart that can erupt and gasp, filling our lungs with vibrations, she sings clearly. This is what it is to be alive, that warm-blooded security of fear, the kind of fear that lets us sleep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was lovely. I'm gonna be stuck on the phrase "life in the post-self society" for some time. I'm gonna have to mull that one over. So, well, thank you, everyone. So one more round of applause for Ajay. And our next reader is Daniel Q. Make sure he pops up there. Daniel identifies as an artist, teacher, activist, and other roles bridging communities and materials and ideas. He has indulged by helping organize and produce events like the Portland Institute for Contemporary Arts Time-Based Art Festival. That is a mouthful. Let me try that again. The Portland Institute for Contemporary Arts Time-Based Arts Festival and the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon's East Portland Arts and Literary Festival. Last year, Daniel helped create Yundae, an activist group for Korean American adoptees, and currently makes ceramic poetry and sculpture out of his home studio. So everybody, let's give Daniel a big welcome.
Okay, thank you, Vinnie. Tonight I'm going to be reading excerpts from a collection that I call Notes on Being Gaysian. I didn't always know I was gay, but looking back on it, the signs were pretty clear. I preferred dolls over sports. I loved music and the arts. Between growing up in the Catholic Church and attending a Lutheran school, it was like having to decide between Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and Jesus Christ Superstar. And then, like so many others, I eventually came out of that closet and realized that I was undeniably gay. I also didn't think I was actually Asian, but looking back on it, the signs were pretty clear. I had a chubby, round face, my hair was black and stubborn, and my eyes squinted when I smiled. In case I couldn't see for myself, the other kids would show me just how to pull their eyes back to look like mine. My parents would try to help, but they only got flustered and embarrassed and changed the subject because their eyes didn't look like mine. As the white hetero Christian family they were, if it wasn't relevant, it wasn't acknowledged. And if it wasn't acknowledged, it wasn't a problem. The saddest part about being different is that I was bullied for being gay and Asian long before my bullies or I really knew what that meant. My parents adopted me from South Korea when I was 4 months old. Growing up in their church, I often confused being adopted with being baptized, since both stories basically told me I was saved from a dark place into a place of light. The adoptee community refers to the journey of self-discovery as coming out of the fog. For me, coming out has happened across so many different categories of identity beyond the proverbial closet of sexuality. Whether closets or fogs, weeds or woods, Coming out took exposure, friendship, and support from a community of both novel and experienced comrades to allow me to discover, accept, and embrace these identities within myself. No matter gay, straight, or bi, lesbian, transgendered life, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born to survive. No matter Black, white, or beige, chola, or Orient maid, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born to be brave. Lady Gaga, 2011. Not to say that my loving, charitable American parents wanted anything but the best life for me and took every moment to remind me that I was Korean and that I came to them as a blessing. At the time, when couples like my parents asked about adopting internationally, the social worker's best diplomatic response was to raise them as you would your own. Their excitement continued in church when another family adopted a girl from China, an equally shy and quiet girl, 3 years younger than me, that my parents would nudge me towards, saying, "Look, Danny, they got one too." During the summers, I attended a one-week day camp for Korean adoptees, where a combination of Korean American adults and white adoptive parents taught a limited variety of Korean tour book culture. For the recreational activities, they taught the girls about traditional Korean fan dancing and Taekwondo for the boys. After obligatorily enduring the yelling, punching, and kicking for 2 years, I noticed plenty of girls who chose to participate in Taekwondo, but I loved the shiny silk dresses and the colorful fans with pink feathers and swirling formations of fan dancing. And when I enrolled, the camp staff switched gears and accommodated me by teaching a traditional Korean farmer's dance that included men and women. No fans. When will my reflection show who I am inside? Mulan, 1998. I wasn't prepared for the singularity of these narratives either. I never felt gay enough for gay groups or Asian enough for cultural groups. I even had the support of my friends to the tune of, "You're not like other gays," or "You're not really Asian." I had my permit, but not my license. I felt like I'd been an exception. I felt like I'd always been an exception to the rule. While having no common model to follow in mainstream media, I took it as a license to free agency. Reflecting on all the closets and fogs I've come out of has given me new lenses to re-examine the shadows of my white identity, my historic relationship with white male aggression, my code switching, my presence and visibility in the workplace, in schools, as a teacher, my Asianness in queer spaces, in clubs and online apps, my queerness in Asian spaces, my gratitude and frustration with my adoptive family, and my distance and detachment of my birth family. I am neither and both victim and privileged. I have been targeted and tokenized for better and for worse. I continue to learn an expansive meaning into the history of gay and Asian civil rights in the US, the history of international adoption, and the trauma and oppression that all various lines of my ancestors faced, often by the hands of US government or other colonial powers. Whether it is because I am special, a blessing, an anomaly, an exception, an alien, an orphan, or a unique perspective, I have never been without a moment of questioning my identity and will continue to weave them together in new formations and rebuild a new sense of self in every new time and space. And to quote Earl C. Kelly, the educational scholar in 1951, "To sum it all up, in some ways I feel we are as confused as ever, but I believe we are confused on a higher level and about more important things." Thanks.
I loved that. I really loved that.
I love that there was just a spontaneous outburst of joy there. I love that too, and just personally wanted to thank you for putting one more Gaysian story out there in the world, and yeah, appreciate that for those of us who didn't have models, that your words are going to serve as a model for other people. So thank you. Our next reader is Megan Alpert, who I am also delighted is with us tonight. Megan has had many sort of multiple lives in a single life. She grew up in the suburbs of New York City, has lived in St. Paul, Seattle, Boston, Washington, D.C., Quito, Ecuador. She's been the recipient of an Orlando Poetry Prize from A Room of Her Own Foundation and residencies at the Vermont Studio Center, the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, the studios at Mass MoCA, and the Marquette Chamber Residency. As a journalist, Megan's received fellowships from Foreign Policy and the International Women's Media Foundation. She's worked as a sandwich maker, a bookseller, child caregiver, an ESL teacher, a journalist, and an editor. And her first book of poetry, The Animal at Your Side, won the Airlie Prize and was published last year in 2020. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna start with a poem from the book, which I'm gonna hold up, looks like that. This is called Crafting. Can everyone hear me okay? Awesome, thanks. Let us not bruise a single onion or throw away a single bite of peach. If you have a home, open it. Take in vegetables and homeless youth. Patch the places where their mother ripped hair from their scalp. Tuck carrot peels back into earth. Take in this muddy river. Banks rise, then freeze and snow again. Take it in your mouth, this headline, boy, 15, charged with murder, as you are charged with water, charged to clean the muddy boot stains by the door. Not the murder, but the fracture it covers. Make home big enough to fit all of this and vegetables and meat. Kids whose lip prints you must clean from glasses, who thunder up and down the stairs, who must be made dinner and spoken to with an unfractured voice. Take the glove that got left in the river, your own sadness, snap it open in the basement in the yellow lights. The table littered with feathers, bones. Feet shuffle upstairs, stomp, then rest. Your work laid out before you, and almost enough time. I forgot to do something. I've been trying to make my readings more accessible, hard of hearing folks, and also just people who want to read along because it's sometimes hard to take stuff in. So I'm throwing a link in the chat to that poem if you want to read it. And this next poem, I'm gonna share on the screen. Here we go. Whoops, nope. Are you seeing a poem called, okay, let me know if the poem I'm reading is the poem you're seeing. It's called The Murdered Woman Visits Antarctica. Awesome, okay, did it. So yeah, this poem is a little darker, and I think the reason I chose it is because for me, it felt like you can't really repair and rebuild until you acknowledge how bad things are and like the full scope of pain. And that's what writing this poem was for me. So although the poem is quite dark, writing it felt amazing and felt really like a relief. So this is called The Murdered Woman Visits Antarctica. Dead, I can wear what I want, go where I want, stand on meltwater, frothy with ash and tephra. Tremor in the boots, horizon white meets white, the empty air. I have no benefactor here, no girl's story to sluice away. Am often ill. When I was a person, how I felt safe, every window sealed. Violence, small as mineral deposits, choked the air, tenderized my lungs. I cannot tell you how soft I went, how pliant. Shrank myself not to scare them. Marooned, where I was neither this nor this, until I was not left. then chase my own self like a wild horse, even dead, to hear where this glacier slow collapses. It hardly matters now if I recover from this, or from this, or from this. So if I can coordinate all my Word docs here, I'm gonna throw another link in the chat. That will be for the next two poems. And if you wanna, they're the first two poems in that issue if you wanna read along while I read them. So this poem makes all of that better. This is the repair part. This is called Alecto, which is, Alecto is one of the Furies from Greek mythology. And she is the Fury of unending anger. I have been working on a book about anger, so I have a couple poems named after this Fury. So this is Alecto Return. I wish I could tell you I climbed those killing bluffs of black rocks scarved with snow, only to bring back something we could live on. That I took the elements I had, love, coercion, lies, fear, as if they were mere igneous stones, and forged them into shapes that I could use. Instead, I hid, kept pelts of animals, dried blood, boric acid, his voice clattering to the cave floor as crystals. I examined for faults, visible breath of silica, held them as protection against believing what I now believe. When I was nearly starved, I called to the only creatures who could hear my voice. Sometimes noses pointed towards my scent, they approached. Sometimes thrown rocks made them dash and scatter. I spent a year like this, alone, then visited, then alone. Into the fire that blazes and engulfs. Sex with sudden force, love, compulsion, fear, and the violence itself, until my arms spread black feathered and talons flare. When I am a person again, I will descend the switchback trail, a blurred shape, then clear, to find you, unfasten the sack strapped to my shoulder, and raise to your open face the first true thing I have for us to eat. So we will read. How much time do I have left, Jennifer?
2 minutes.
Okay. So I'm going to read. So this last poem I'm going to read is about a job I had taking care of children who had been diagnosed with mental health issues. It's very new and not fully finished yet, but I felt like it fit for tonight. So this is called Respite. Oh, and I will do the thing. There we go. I drove through eerie marshlands, looped north to reach east, got lost in the mazes of towns I am not at liberty to name. Signed a contract the first week at the job. I'd never say anything about the 5 children I cared for, and once I left, I'd never contact them again. You needed what the trainer called emotional leather, and I had none. The kids I gathered and drove with me through evening stop and go traffic had none either. They barely had skin. I took them for 3 hours each, once a week, to empty playgrounds, amusement parks, fast food restaurants, animal shelters, anywhere they wanted to go. I want to tell you about them, to make them live forever in your mind, because they deserve that. But they deserve, if they want, their secrets, to be as anonymous as any girl sailing past a drive-through. I'll tell you this, there was nothing wrong with any of them, except being wounded. When I left the job, the pain I caused did something to me I can't describe. I don't know what I became to them in memory. Another adult the state sent to make up for what they were not given. A piece of the shabby net meant to wrap the ways we refuse to care for each other. But I am here in this poem to tell them that every big gulp, every perfectly round orange in the palm of a hand, every secret whispered in a deep museum, every silver guitar, every falter and brag, every hospital courtyard did not go unnoticed by me. I hold them still, like valuables in a pawn shop's glass case, waiting for the rightful owners to arrive. That's it, thanks.
Thank you so much, Megan. And thank you for your focus on accessibility in your reading. That was wonderful to be able to read along. And I think there were definitely those who greatly appreciate that. So thank you so much for bringing that to us tonight. So before I introduce our last reader of the evening, I can't believe we're already on to our last reader. I did want to just point out, if you've been paying attention to the chat, Elisa has been putting links to books up throughout for readers who have that. I want to encourage everyone, if you can, one of the best ways you can support our readers, especially those who have published books, is to buy their books. So click on those links, purchase a book, and Elisa has very kindly set up an actual page on the Another Read the Road site that's all books that were from past Incite readers. There are so many books, we could actually start a book club for just Incite readers. So, which, hey, if you want to start that book club, let me know. Like, I think we can facilitate that. So anyway, that just one more plug to support our readers there. And so I am always happy to introduce our last reader. I will forever lay claim to fame that I got to hear her read at her very first public reading. And that's something that when I am old and gray, I'm going to be like, I was there at her first reading ever. So, but please welcome Nastashia Minto. Nastashia is the author of Naked, The Rhythm and Groove of It, The Depth and Length to It. She was born in South Georgia and raised there by her grandparents. She grew up in poverty around drugs, alcohol, and family violence, but her life experiences led her to obtain an associate's degree in occupational therapy, a bachelor's degree in psychology, and is now currently working on a PhD in depth psychology. She has been writing since she was 9 and has found that her writing offers her a way to not only help herself, but others as well. Her work has appeared in Nailed, Gobshite Quarterly, Portland Metrozine, Susan the Journal, The Unchased Anthology, and Heron Clan 8. And she is a popular reader right here in Portland and in Seattle, including Seattle Folklore and our beloved Powell's World of Books. So please welcome Nastashia.
Hi, thank you all. Thank you all. I first want to say I'm no longer in that program, but that's okay. That was an interesting thing. So thank you all so much for having me. And my first poem is going to be titled My Community. My community say they proud of me, stand tall for me, hold their fists in the air and they shout for me. My community say they love me, they got my back. But once I moved out, I was praised for not coming back. My community say they sick of the violence, sick of the crime, the drugs, and the people dying. My community say the government ain't shit, but half of them lived in the built up government bricks. My community say they wish we could all just get along, break bread, raise the young, take care of the old, commune in the same space. My community said they tired of the bills going up, but the wages staying the same. They tired of the renaming streets historically Black and brown names with no real change. They tired of the criminalization of our body, minds, and souls. There will be no need to prepare a community because none of us will grow old. See, my community say they tired of us being fetishized for the natural features that we possess, then get arrested for fitting the description, while Europeans appropriate our features, a carbon copy depiction, allowed to appropriate our cultures, but never feel the consequences of the Black and brown skin we live in. See, my community said they want to wake up from this poorly written fiction, where every character is depicted as lazy, angry, strung out with some mental issue or addiction. My community say they tired of being poor. They tired of poverty of the mind, body, and soul. My community said no more. It's time to heal. My community said they ain't waiting for a savior. The community and resources are the solution, not just a pill. See, we will come back to trusting, loving, hearing each other, being there for each other, caring for each other, praying for each other. My community, they said it's time to change, and that change will start with us. But that's what my community said. So that's my first one. Thank y'all, thank y'all. And my second one is titled, I should say these are not in the book that Elise is posting. These are all new. The second one is titled, America's Unborn Child. We were conceived with her hands over her head, hands held her legs, her womb was taken, no permission given. We were seated in your womb, mama, snuggled in the corners, growing at a steadily pace, heartbeats merging, organs forming, spine stretching, toes and fingers spreading, brain developing, tossing and turning, tossing and turning. Do you love us, mama? Do you feel us, mama? We feel you. We feel the knee to your neck, the gun to your head, the force around your waist, the hands covering your face. Wait, wait, mama, we can't breathe. We can't breathe, mama. Please inhale. We toss and we turn to soothe you. Is that too much, mama? Are we making you tired, mama? Do you love us? We eat the same poison you feed yourself. We drink the same water. We are intertwined, connected like roots, mama. Do you see this cord that stems from you to me? Do you feel us, mama? Because we toss and we turn to get your attention. We're imprinting our feet in your womb, on your skin, in your body, our bodies, these bodies. Can you feel us, mama? Are we ready to enter this world? Are you ready for us? Is it time? Are we ready for this place, mama? Will you care for us? Long labor, heavy breathing, fathered by many, but fatherless. Whose name will we carry? Whose legacy do we hold? Whose wealth would we obtain, mama? We are here. Do you love us? Tossing and turning. We are here. Do you love us, mama? Tossing and turning. We heard the songs you sung, trying to soothe us. It lays thick on the skin, scarred the rich dirt of the skin. In this skin we are in, mama. You birthed us, America, another child. Do you love us, mama? Do you see the wounds? We're trying to heal. Did you hear me? We're trying to heal. Can you feel us healing? Can you feel us healing? Does that bother you, mama? Does it bother you that we know who we are apart from you, America? Thank you. And I have one last one. It's called Return Home. come back home. Why do you? Because grandma, sometimes I'm afraid of what I might see, of what I may become when I stop running. When I start humming to the ancestral vibrations, breaking chains, call that DNA liberation. And the power of my mind and tongue, call that manifestation. And I'm calling all of my works into fruition. And yeah, I'm speaking of light works and premonitions, because we're fighting a fight that's systemically deep. While we care for these paper-cut wounds that cover our bodies. See, I'm a walking gun and my words are the bullets. So I'm intentional with my speech and I'm careful when I pull it. But I hear my grandmother say, girl, live your life to the fullest. To stop running and live in your authentic fullness. And come back home. And come back home. Come back home. Why do you run from me, run from me, run from me? Run from me, run from me, run from me. Come back home. Come back home. Why do you? Come back home. Come back home. Why do you? Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nastashia. That was wonderful and so unexpected. So grateful that you shared that with us. We are going to move out into groups so that you all have a chance to meet some of the other people who are here tonight and talk about maybe some of what you just heard, or you can talk about our questions, which I will pop into the chat again. Those questions are, what are you committed to repairing and rebuilding? And what are the requirements for repairing and rebuilding? And